Name is Sharvon Green. I'm originally from a small town right outside of Savannah, Guyton, Georgia. I came to Atlanta in '93 for school, and I'm a graduate of Georgia State University, and I just never went back home. So Atlanta is home for me now. I'm a photographer, as well as I just started a new business um, at the beginning of the pandemic. So I am literally birthing a new business during the pandemic. But the name of my business is Cartopia Auto Brokers, and the website is cartopiaautobrokers.com. The IG is also Cartopia Auto Brokers. So, and my email is very simple, cartopiaautobrokers@gmail.com. I'm an event photographer. We do graduations, capping gown portraits. So as you can imagine, I lost all of that income at the beginning of the pandemic, which is one of those things that I never even thought about anything that could actually affect that income, because everybody's going to go to college. You always have people going to college. You always have graduation. So having something that came about like COVID-19 that affected that business, that was nothing that I'm sure, like everybody else, I could not prepare for. At the very beginning, once the event started getting canceled, I knew immediately that I had to do something different. And so it's been a long time since I actually shot for myself, because I was a contracted employee shooting for a company. So immediately I had to start generating business for myself. And then the other part of that is I am a independent auto dealer. And so I started that business at the beginning of the pandemic. And of course, last year, I did this entire business plan for everything that I had hoped to do in 2021 when I started that business. And of course, I had to revamp that whole thing, because I tell people, and I kind of laugh about it because you have to kind of laugh to keep from crying sometimes. I'm like, nowhere in my business plan did it have COVID-19. Uh, for the first 3 months, I did actually put the business on hold, because one of the biggest challenges for me was, how do you do test drives when you have to be 6 feet apart from people? So that was one of the biggest challenges for me. It wasn't so much the simulcast and having to look for cars online, but of course, being so new to the industry, being able to walk to the auction site, see the cars, check them out, make certain that they were in proper working condition. That was one of those things that I couldn't do. So I just had to rely on the information that was available to me online. I had to go in fast forward mode by totally automating the business, so that the sales for my customers, everything could be pretty much completed online. And that's what I did. I came up with a process for my customers to be able to complete at least 90% of their transaction online for the car sales. Change, of course, is one of those things that I always tell people that you have to be willing to adapt. As a photographer, one of the first jobs that I got as a photographer was actually shooting cars. So that's kind of how I got into the automobile industry. It was really a full circle moment for me, because I started shooting cars. And after shooting cars for so long, I was thinking, well, hey, I could sell them too. so so I wasn't totally new to the automobile industry, but knowing that I had to quickly do something to revamp this business, or else it would have to close. I'm everybody in the business. So I am sales, I'm the first mechanic, I'm the detail lady, I'm finance, I'm everything right now. The experience from working as a photographer, um, no day is the same, no event is the same, and you have to be able to think quickly on your feet and change as those things take place. So I'm actually in two industries that are male dominated. So in the photography space, as well as in the independent auto dealer, auto broker space, Many times I am the only female. So, and I did that for years in the photography space, doing events, marathons, and it's me and a crew of men that are typically doing that. As far as the automobile industry, it really did start with photography. If you would have asked me 7 years, 8 years ago, would I be an independent automobile dealer? I would have never guessed that because taking on that position, and I always describe myself as an accidental entrepreneur. That wasn't something I intended to do. I worked for the Atlanta Journal and Constitution as a newspaper designer, and I loved that job. And if you would have asked me then, I just thought that I would have retired from the AJC. I loved my job. I loved designing the classified section of the paper. But when I was laid off in 2009, I had to reinvent myself. And I always enjoyed photography as a hobby. And so I just went out and brought myself a camera and took some classes and I started photography. And one of the first jobs that I received was as a photographer for high-end cars. And I never thought about doing photography for automobiles, but I really loved that space. There's so much involved in that industry. All the requirements that you have to do for the state, having your own commercial space, and everything that's involved with that, the licenses, the education, everything that you need. And it was way more. If someone had told me prior to starting the independent auto dealer, everything that I had to do, I probably would not have done it. So I'm glad that I did not know. And I kind of found my way as I started the process. Um, One of the highest points for me was I jumped out right away and purchased a high-end car. And the customer that I had was the greatest customer for a first-time customer. And he purchased a car. I met him at the airport. He rented a car, drove 5 hours to purchase that car for me, and it was a 2014 Porsche Panamera. And when he got to me, he said that this was a car that he had been dreaming about having for the past 10 years and that I made his day. He said that he searched all over the US for that particular car for the price that I offered it to him. And at that moment, I knew that I was in the right business. I don't want anybody to leave with a car from me and they walk away and now they're upside down in the car. My goal is to make certain that when you purchase a car from me, should you decide a month from now to sell that car, you can make some money on it as well. And that's how I plan to run this business. I can actually offer financing for my customers, which a lot of brokers that I know do not have financing because they don't want to offer financing for new brokers who, one, I don't have a lot. I work out of a suite. And two, I was just so new. And so after calling about 20 finance companies to try and get financing for my customers, everybody said no. And then the next day, my last no called back and said yes. And so I have one company that took a chance with me and my business being so new to provide financing for my customers. So in building relationships, and it was actually from a contact that I made from Cox that called and gave a referral for me. And she had never met me either. But she gave a referral for me that actually worked and it helped me to get financing for my business for to be able to offer financing for my customers. I'm actually a single mom of three. And so I have one that's finished college and I have two that started in the fall. I had twins, a boy and a girl that graduated in May. And then, of course, there was no graduation for them. But starting a new business and then having two starting college freshmen, Um, Definitely has been challenging, but I had to make certain that I create that balance. And for me, it's all about planning and preparation. I have to start my week with a plan. And so on Sundays, I kind of use that as my day to plan out my week. And I have to keep my goals for that day and make certain that I have that plan, because otherwise, because I'm, with my kids in school, and I think sometimes they think that I'm their personal assistant as well. But now it's all about me getting them to a place where they can be more independent. I'm a mom, and we have that special skill for multitasking when we need to. But if you are thinking about starting a new business at this point in time, if anything, um, there's no better time than now to do that. Should you decide to do so, you just have to go for it. And you'll be surprised that so many more people than you think would be willing to help you. You got to network, make certain you create that base to network with people in your industry. But I've had people to help me in this business thus far that I just would not have imagined, a year ago that I would have received that help from people. So just do it. So I don't know about other industries, but for myself, definitely challenging working in two male dominated fields, not only as a woman, but as an African American woman. When I talked about the financing, um, you know, I didn't realize certain things when I started the industry, like, for instance, how important the address is for the business. And I actually had someone to tell me that over the phone. I'm not sure if she knew that I was a woman of color or not, but when she had that conversation with me, and it just kind of made it be real for me at that moment. And she said to me, "Oh, I'm so glad your business is in Atlanta. If you were a dealer on Covington Highway or Memorial Drive, then I probably wouldn't have been able to get you financing for your business." And that was one of the things that was like the shocker for me at that moment. So I kind of probed her a little bit more in the conversation, because I wanted to be able to find out how I, as an African American female, can help people of color well in this industry as well. And she went on to tell me about another scenario where you can have two people with the same credit, same income. One can live in one part, say in East DeKalb, and you can have someone in North DeKalb, and that's going to affect their approval. I am from Effingham County, where when the football team would score a touchdown, they would play Dixie and wave the Confederate flag across the field. That's my school. So that's where I graduated from. So some of the things that I see here are not as shocking for me as they are to some people, because that's my hometown. That's where I grew up. Rebels was our mascot from my high school, and I was a band member. So playing Dixie was a part of the band's duty. I was fortunate enough to have a band director that said to all of the African American students that if we knew what that song meant, we didn't have to play it. To hear somebody say that to me, and it made me wonder, like, does she know that I am a woman of color as she's saying that to me? That if my address was completely different, that I would not have been able to get financing for my business. It just really kind of brings home to at you know we have gotten to a point now where things are so much better than what they were before, but we still have such a long way to go. And I think there's some real conversations that need to be had on both sides. And I just really wish that sometime soon that we can have white people, Black people come to the table and we can sit down and have those conversations, like real conversations, especially if anything, everything that has happened over the past few weeks, and not to be so political about everything that's happened, but everything that has happened over the past few weeks, even with the election, um, lets us know that we still have so far to go. Like, we still have really so far to go, um, as it comes to systemic racism, even in business. So I just really hope that things will get better, because you can see on social media where people make comments and say, "What are you talking about, racism?" Like, and when I see those comments, I'm like, "Oh my gosh!" Like, how can you not think that we still have these issues? It's like unbelievable to me at this point in time. One of the things that I wanted to do in this industry, and I tell people, there's few things that I'm going to guarantee you. I'm going to guarantee you that I'm going to get you a good car. I'm going to get you a good deal. And thus far, I've been successful in the fact that I'm not going to charge dealer fees or any of the other fees that are often associated with car dealerships. So when you see the price, it is the price, and you're going to pay your 6% tax if you're here in Georgia, as well as your tax tag and title. And that is what I want to keep it at. Um, it- Not haggling with the price, what the price is what it is. Do your research. Pay cash for a car if you can. And I know everybody can't pay cash for a car, but if you can pay cash for a car, buy the car that you can afford to buy. Don't spend a lot of money in all those fees and, interest that you're having to pay on that. Don't do a trade. Don't trade in a vehicle. If you have a car that you want to get rid of in order to purchase a new one, sell that car as a private owner, and then use the funds from that to put towards a new car. Because more times, I would say probably 9 times out of 10, you're not going to get anything for that trade. It may appear that you're getting something for it on paper, but more than likely, you're not going to get anything for it. So it's always best to sell the car privately and then use the funds for that to take to the car dealership. For me, the American dream is actually creating equal opportunities for everybody. And as a mom, an African American female, a business owner, that American dream is so important for me to be able to make certain that my children have equal opportunities as well. And of course, we always want to be able to leave this place a lot better than it was before. But I definitely think ownership is a part of that. Being able to leave a legacy for my children and for my children's children that include ownership as well as service to others.